Okay, so here we have a metric conversion table, and I have two rules that apply to this conversion table. The first rule says to move from a larger unit to a smaller unit, move the decimal to the right or multiply by a power of 10. So let's assume we have 1, and the measurement we're going to look at is grams. So I'm measuring something that is 1 gram. And to move the decimal, we're going to have to assume that there is a decimal right there on the end. Okay? All right, so the rule says to move from a larger unit to a smaller unit, move the decimal to the right or multiply by a power of 10. So we're going to go this way. We're going to go that way. And so in order to move my decimal that way, I'm going to move it by powers of 10. So here I know there is no power of 10 here, but there's 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So let's assume I wanted to move my decimal to figure out how many milligrams there are. So I'm going to move to this place here. So I have to move 1, 2, 3 times. And I'm going to do that with my decimal. So I'm going to move 1, 2, 3 times. And each place that I move, I'll put a 0 in that place. So instead of this being a decimal here, there's going to be a decimal at the end, which gives me 1,000. So I know in order to move from meters to millimeters, I'm going to move to the left with my move to the right with my decimal, and I'm going to multiply by a power of 10, which gives me 1,000. Now on the other hand, the other rule is to move from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we're going to move the decimal to the left, or we're going to divide by a power of 10. So let's assume the same thing. I have a 1 here, and I'm going to put the decimal at the end. I'm going to assume the decimal is there. And what I'm going to do is obey the rule and move the decimal to the left. Now, if I wanted to move my grams, my 1 gram, and I wanted to figure out how many kilograms I have, it's the same thing. I know that there are 3 powers of 10 between grams and kilograms. So I have to move my decimal 1, 2, 3 times. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3 times. And I'm going to put zeros in each place. I put this 0 here because there has to be something to separate my decimal, my whole section, and my fraction section. All right. So in this case, there are 0.001 kilograms, and it equals to 1 gram. Let's look at this question. Bunny is measuring the height of a fallen tree. Her measuring tape has a maximum length of 3 meters. The tree ends up measuring 8 complete lengths of her measuring tape. How many centimeters long is the tree? Well, if I look at this question, I see that it's a multi-step question. The first thing I should do, or the first thing that I should notice, is that her measuring tape only has a maximum length of 3 meters. So I can't use 3 here for meters. That would be incorrect. So the tree ended up measuring 8 complete lengths of her measuring tape. So what I need to do first is multiply 8 by 3, which equals 24. So I know that my unit of measurement for meters will be 24. Now, remember, here's where it gets tricky because I don't want to put 24. 24 is not the answer. Let's go back to the question. So we know that her measuring tape has a maximum length of 3 meters, and her tree ends up measuring 8 lengths, which was 24. Now we have to find out how many centimeters long the tree is. That's the end of the question there. How many centimeters long is the tree? Okay, so if I think about the rule says to move from a larger unit to a smaller unit, we're going to move the decimal, which is assumed to be right here. We're going to move the decimal to the right or multiply by a power of 10. Here are our centimeters here. So I know to get from meters to centimeters, I need to move 2 powers of 10. So let's move our decimal to the right, which is this way. We're going to move the decimal 2 places. 1, 2, and then I'm going to add zeros in those places since the decimal stops here, which will give me an answer of 2,400 centimeters. Let's look at one more question. Peter's table weighs 5,950 grams. How many kilograms does Peter's table weigh? I'll give you a second to work this out, and then we'll work on it. You can press pause here. Okay, so let's work through this. Peter's table weighs 5,950 grams. I know my grams are my base unit, so that's in the middle. So I can put 5,950 there. It says, how many kilograms does Peter's table weigh? Well, I know the rule states to move from a smaller unit to a larger unit, I'm going to move my decimal to the left, or I'm going to divide by a power of 10. It's easier to move the decimal than it is to divide. So let's assume that our decimal sits right there on the end. Okay? It sits right here on the end. And in order to move this, I'm trying to get from grams to kilograms. So I know that it takes 3 powers of 10. So I'm going to move 1, 2, 3 times. Take my decimal and move 1, 2, 3 times. And in this case, there are already numbers there, so I don't really need to put any zeros because I shouldn't do that. There are no places to put a zero. So in this case, since I moved the decimal, that's where I'm going to stop the decimal. And so I'll end up with 5.950, or just regular 5.95 as my answer.